some of you had asked me, since I am the generations pastor, what is this generations ministry? And instead of spending 10, 15 minutes up here trying to explain it to you, we just built a video. And you guys like watching them, so check this out, and then I'll come back up. So that was Chris's work, and just a real brief recap of that. Generations Ministry is an umbrella ministry that covers from cradle, those newborns, all the way to college. And the college age thing is kind of still undefined because we have some high schoolers that don't go to college right away, and then some later 20s that do. And so it's a process of all of that. So that's what Generations covers. And so then I decided to start thinking, looking. I really just said, a year ago when I was just doing youth pastoring and youth ministry, it used to drive me nuts when some of our youth would come in and I'd be presenting a message. And I'd spent a lot of time on this. And they're on their phone. And I'm thinking, how rude, how inconsiderate. But then I felt the need to actually start studying, looking at who they are. Which you can't look at one generation without looking at multiple generations, right? Generation, the word generation, is it's really a generalization. So when I start talking about specific age groups, specific generations, just remember that it is a broad brush stroke of a blanket of the age group during that time. The individual personalities, who they are, their characteristics, their traits, all that stuff is individualized, but there is a broad generalization of a generation, okay? And basically, it's the average length of time between the birth of a parent, or between birth and the opportunity to give birth as a parent. Okay, so in biblical times, it was about 40 years. I became a parent when I was 30. And I would argue that as time moves on, right, the generation gaps shorten. And I would argue that because of the available knowledge and technology that's out there. And so as these younger generations move up, all this information is available to them just at a push of a button or a swipe of a finger. So let's take a look at the generations. And I guess I have the clicker, so what does that mean? Let's try that. Did it do anything? Oh, not the video. She's going to click it for me. Sweet.
No pressure.
I'm getting rid of that thing. So if you just go to the table, Cheryl, that would be awesome. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So there are a few generations that I'm going to look at. It actually goes bottom up. Top down is the youngest, and then it goes to the oldest. So let's see where you fit within these categories. Okay, Generation A, or Alpha, that is the newest generation. They've only been around since last year. And most of them right now are in the nursery. Okay, and we do have Generation A's in our church. Gen Z, or iGen, were born somewhere between 2000 and 2012. Now, one of the things I got to tell you about this is that the generation splits or where they start and stop is kind of a blur. So am I standing in your way? Anyway, sorry. I'm probably working with the right generation. Anyway, it's like a bridging. So that's what you got to look at. You just take my numbers. I researched a ton of different stuff. This is kind of what I came up with. Okay, Gen Z, Gen I is another name for them between 2000 and 2012. Generation Y, or the millennials, is from 1983 to about 2000. Gen X, which I am, is 1965 to about 1982. Then you have the boomers, 46 to 64, and then the silent gen. Is there any boomers in the house? Oh, boy, you are in trouble. I'm just joking. Silent Gen, 1925 to 1945. And it just gives you an approximation of the population in the United States in the millions. Now, the largest population, both in the United States and globally, are the millennials. Yeah, right. We had like two in the house. That's not good. Anyway, so just go ahead, Cheryl, if you just want to leave that up there. That way they look at that and not me. So there are like numerous issues that I can see that cause hurdles or conflicts between the generations. And you're sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I can think of about 25 of them, right? But here's just a small list of some stuff I put together. Some issues like volume of music, the value of tradition, value of attire or modesty, clothing, worship, when, why, and where, the role of the mom and dad in the home, value of possessions, the view of vocation or jobs, the view of money, the view of alcohol, values of entertainment, child rearing, ethnic diversity, technology, and a view of the human body, including tattoos or piercings. All of those things from one generation to the other can be viewed as an issue or a conflict between them. You don't have to agree. It's my message. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Here's some stuff that I've discovered about real brief, right? I mean, it's like mass information that I've kind of tried to put down into a paragraph. So see if any of this stuff within your generation actually applies to you. I'm going to start with the silent gen. Okay, 1925 to 1945. They would be characterized as a get-it-done generation. They tend to be loyal, faithful, and committed. Silent Gen are primarily motivated by respect and recognition. They resonate with the personal touch, such as handwritten notes, and they oppose technology communications. This generation is significantly opportunistic in their jobs and their education as the war ended and a post-war economic boom struck in America. However, the growth of Cold War tension and the potential, of nuclear war and other threats, never before seen threats, led to elevations of discomfort and uncertainty throughout the generations. Now, do you know why I'm reading this? I wrote all that, right? It's like way too much to memorize. Members of this group value security, comfort, and familiarity, known activities, and their environment. So, I'm kind of risking this, but if you fit within that generation at all, would you be willing to raise your hand? Okay. So we have a few of you. Cool. So that's the silent gen, huh? I thought some of you were boomers. Mitch, you were wrong. Okay. Let's move on to the boomers. So 1946 to 1964. Are you guys ready? They have earned the reputation for being rebellious, affluent, and independent. Most have lived during a very strong economy. Boomers respond when they are engaged in teamwork, group discussions, and increased responsibility. This first post-Watergate generation lost much of its trust in government and optimistic views. Economic struggles, including the oil embargo of 1979, which I do remember, reinforced a sense of, I'm only out for me. And narcissism, as well as a focus on self-help and self-help situations and skepticism over media, basically represents the attitude of this group. Sorry. Boomers had Vietnam as a part of their rite passage. Remember, I can feel the darts shooting at me. It's just a generalization. Okay. I think I need some water and maybe a shield. Let me get on to the Xers, which I am, right? Thanks, Peter. I'm a Generation X, so 1965 to 1983. They're possibly, I probably shouldn't have set myself up this way. Anyway, they are possibly the most abused, forgotten, and alienated of the four generations. Wait a minute, let me keep going. They are referred to as the lost generation, as they were the first latchkey kids. Exposed to lots of daycare and divorce, known as the generation with the lowest voting participation rate of any generation. See, you thought I was just going to pick on you guys. Gen X is often characterized by high levels of skepticism. And I totally agree with that. Their attitude is, what's in it for me? They have a reputation of the worst music ever to hit popularity. I was thinking about that, and Cyndi Lauper came to my mind. Anyway. Some of you know who that is. Anyway, I'm going to have fun there for a second. They have experienced a fractured economy, the introduction of AIDS, and they resonate with MTV, which I found out from Pastor Shane is still on. Generation X is motivated by their own interests rather than corporate interests and demand a sign of loyalty before loyalty is given. So for me, because I picked on the boomers a little bit, skepticism is the thing that resounds most with Generation X. Let's go to the millennials. How many millennials we got in here? Oh, we got a few of you. All right, that's awesome. So the millennials, born somewhere between 1983 and 2000, are identified as technologically savvy. And they're more liberal, tolerant of diversity, and super fragmented regarding their preferences. High levels of diversity, creative, and rapid results motivate millennials, which means when their website doesn't pop up in 2.5 seconds, they move on to the next one. But I have to be honest, I kind of do the same thing. Okay, so high levels of diversity, okay, I did that. They are considered the me generation. Gen Ys are less brand loyal, and the speed of the internet has led to a cohort, to be simplified in the flexibility or changing of fashions. Wow, that's a lot of big words that I normally don't use. Okay, Gen Ys were often raised in dual income or single parent families and have been more involved in family purchases. Everything from groceries to new cars. 1 in 9, and this must be the later end of it, Gen Ys have credit cards co-signed by a parent. And now to Gen Z, which is also called iGen or digital natives. These guys are born somewhere between 2000 and 2013. This is really where I started my study, because this is the majority of the group that I work with is Generation Z, and they were the ones that would be on their tablets and their phones and stuff while I was speaking, and I came to find out that they actually can multitask way more than I ever dreamed I could. And let me move on. So they are considered to be the we generation. So millennials, me, Gen Z, we. They are respectful, have short attention spans, and tend to be more conservative than the boomers and millennials. The norm is diversity, school violence and shootings, terrorism, and climate change. They are more socially aware and community-minded. Gen Z kids will grow up with a highly sophisticated media and computer environment and will be more internet savvy and experts than their Gen Y forerunners. But they are also technologically reliant, which really means that most of these kids had some form of access to a computer from the time they knew what it was. It's really crazy when you look at the diversity of the generations. And as I stand up here and look across the room, I can see where groups of you fall into whatever that is behind there. And right now you're thinking, wow, this is great. I didn't think I was going to come to a Sunday morning and get a lecture on generations, but I'm gonna move on. So why do I really tell you all this, right? That's the question. Well, I believe that generations is a big deal for the Lord. 154 times, if you look at Bible Gateway or whatever, you will find 154 references in Scripture to generations or generation. There's a couple of key components. Most of the time it's generation to generation, or the other one is generations to come. You'll find that most often. I believe that it's a really big deal to the Lord, and the reason is because that next generation, the one coming, the responsibility for us helping them, leading them, is on us, not them. It's on us. So here's a couple of things. In Mark, and it's not going to be up there, Cheryl, I didn't do this. In the book of Mark, chapter 9, somewhere around verse 33, you'll find that Jesus and his disciples that was the passage where his disciples are disputing who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. And Jesus had a young child brought in the middle of them, right? He I don't know, goes and gets one maybe himself, and he brings a young child over there, and he sticks it in the middle of the disciples, and he said something like, you have to be more like this child to become, more in the kingdom of God. So you need to become more like the child. That's a reference from Jesus to his disciples to become more childlike, which is a generational thing. You're all thinking, no, that's really not. Yes, it is. Luke 18:15, it goes this way. Jesus, again, rebuked rebuked his disciples because a group of moms with their little ones wanted to bring them to Jesus and have Jesus bless them. And his disciples were telling them, no, get away, go away. And Jesus once again rebukes his disciples and says, you need to be more childlike to be part of the kingdom of God. The crazy thing is, and it's not actually proven, you can't find it in the Bible, but if you study Scripture, and I read a whole article on it, that the disciples themselves were actually considerably younger than Jesus. When Jesus started his ministry, he was 30, right? Peter was there's only one reference of Peter being married, or Jesus healing his mother-in-law, which means Peter was probably married. You had to be, I believe it was 18 in the Jewish culture at that time to actually be given a wife. So he would have been older than that. None of the other disciples are even, there's no mention of them with wives. And so there's a very good possibility that those guys were actually in the generation preceding him, not preceding, but, after him, okay? So if you want to talk about mentoring, leading, discipling, Jesus was our model, even with that. So generations are important to Jesus. Yeah, what the heck, let's go here. You don't have to admit this. I used to say it myself, and I've heard people say it even this last week when they slam and bad talk and, put down, the generation below them or two generations below them. If you guys have done that, can I just encourage you to stop? Just stop. Just don't do it anymore. And here's why. In Matthew, you can switch slides now, Cheryl. In Matthew 12:36, this is why I think we need to stop. Because, Jesus says, I tell you that everyone will have to give an account on the day of judgment for the empty words that they have spoken. And then you can go on to Proverbs, where it says in Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat the fruit. Really, the bottom line with both of those, if you're slamming not just individuals, but groups, and it includes individuals, you should just stop. Because each one of us is going to have to give an account for what we say. And obviously, Jesus says, hey, if you confess your sins, then I'm faithful and just to forgive you, right? You'll be forgiven of that. But the power of the tongue is unbelievably incredible. I just think for a moment, right? As you've grown up, when you were younger, did anybody ever tell you you were useless, no good, you'll never account to anything? If you remember that, then those words are going to be, that person, those individuals that said that, they're going to be held accountable for that because you have not forgotten how that hurt inside. That's not the direction of my message. I'm just telling you, if you find yourself in that situation, just stop doing it. Just stop, please. Thank you. Here's where I want to go with this is we, as a church, we are a multi-generational church, right? And we are. If I wanted to take the time and had each generational group stand up, you would see that it's not all just the silent gen or the boomers. There are some millennials and there's some Gen Z people in here. In my family, my oldest son, Spencer, he kind of falls between. He's like the bridge thing where I'm still trying to figure out which one he is. Right? But I have Gen Zers in my household, and they think a little differently than I do, and they look up stuff differently than I do. And it's not that I have to join into what they're doing, but I have to at least value them and value their style of learning and value what they value. Otherwise, there's no relationship there. There's no opportunity for relationship. So I'm going to focus on Gen Z just for a few minutes. Speaking about the opportunity that each one of you, if you are willing to take that challenge, can mentor and disciple and help that generation below you or two generations below you. Those opportunities are there, and it's with how these guys are connected socially, and it's not how I hate talking on the phone at this point in my life. I remember when I was a kid, I used to call my friend up and, hey, available? Yeah, okay, click, and off I'd go and up the driveway. 25% of this age group would have to get on a jet to go see one of their friends. They don't live next door. And they are so they have this mindset that they want to help society. They want to help the world. You want to get ready for that next video? There's this girl who lives just up in Vancouver Island, and she created this flashlight for a friend that lived in another country. And it's on the Jimmy Fallon. It was on the Jimmy Fallon show, but I'm going to let you watch it.
Who's up next? Ann, come on over here. Ann, hi. Hi, buddy. Nice to see you. Ann, what's your last name?
My last name is Matt Krasinski.
Matt Krasinski, and where are you from?
I'm from British Columbia, Canada.
Hey, cool. You love Canada. How old are you?
I'm 16 years old.
16 years old. Now, what did you come up with? This is very cool.
I created a flashlight that runs on the heat of the human hand.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, eye head's one thing, but this guy. Now, what do you mean it runs on the heat of your hand?
Well, I use Peltier tiles on my flashlight, and by heating one side with my hand and cooling the other side but with ambient air, and you can see it is a hollow tube, it produces electricity.
Let me see this thing. Can we turn the lights out and see if this thing works? Ooh, spooky. Wow, that's crazy. All right, good. I'm getting scared. Bring the lights back up. How did you come up with this? You just learned about what these tiles do, or what?
Well, I have a friend in the developing countries, and she failed her grade because she had no light, so this was a solution.
So that video, you can find all kinds of stuff out there that kids between like 17 and 14, 17 and 13 are doing just incredible stuff. And the thing about this particular girl that I was so impressed by is that she didn't design this flashlight because she wanted to never have to work again, right? Or whatever. She did it because she had a friend in a developing country. Like I read the article, she lives in Canada, her friend is in the Philippines. And that friend failed a grade because at night she didn't have any light. And so she took this on as a opportunity to help whomever, right? And there's a process that she's going through on trying to get this thing, patented and all the stuff that needs to go through there. But this generation, the Gen Zers, they are, their connections through social media is what is the key for the kingdom. I mean, you might not see that. I mean, I know that a lot of you are probably on Facebook. Most of the Gen Zers don't do Facebook. Most of them do like Snapchat and Instagram and some other stuff that I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And they're constantly in a process of changing. Remember I said earlier, they're much more conservative. They've actually gotten to the point this group doesn't want all their information out there. For those of you that were in HR hiring, people, I mean, when the millennials came on the scene, you wanted their Facebook because you wanted to see what they were really like, right? Because they just puked it all out there. Okay, these guys aren't like that. They don't want any of that out there. They're much more conservative. You want to throw up that last slide? I think there's one more. Maybe there's two more. That's it. Okay, so I watched this 56-slide presentation by a company. It's a marketing company called Sparks and Honey. And they found that 60% of Gen Zers want jobs that had a social impact, compared with 31% of the Gen Ys, which are the millennials. They are much more entrepreneurial. I can't even say that word. Entrepreneurial. There we go. 72% want to start their own businesses. They're community-oriented. 26% already volunteer. That's huge. I have to be honest with you, in my little world at Kingsway, we had more help this year at camp from that age group than ever before. To the point where we actually had to say, I'm sorry, we're full. Okay? I filled out like 2 or 3 of I don't even remember the forms that they take back to their high school. 26% of them are already volunteering. This one I actually found was pretty funny. They're prudent. 56% say we're savers, not spenders. I find that funny because I have a couple of them at my house. And the Gen Z is also seen to be more tolerant than Gen Y in sexual and generational diversity and less likely to subscribe in traditional gender roles. That one I put up there because it bothers me. So if you really read that and think about that. Here's the deal, you guys. If we don't invest into them, they're just going to be lost. They're going to be lost from the church. They're the whole aspect of the racial and sexual gender diversity. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time in there, but if you ask them a couple of key questions where the majority of this place would go, oh, that's not what the Bible says. That's not what right. They'd just be like, it's just the way it is. Right? That can only be changed by mentoring, by you speaking life into them.
Amen.
Words of life.